Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and I'm talking astrology. On this video, I'm going to be looking at the solar eclipse and also Neptune in Aries, but not just in general, but really sign by sign. Now, this gives all of you an opportunity to think, how are all these things affecting me personally? Now, two things I want to say before I head into it. In my other video, which is about the solar eclipse and the spring ingress, quite a few things, I tend to focus on global events. It's a little bit more technical. But actually, I got caught out by time and didn't manage to say very much about Neptune in Aries. Now, I am going to do a separate video on Neptune in Aries. So important is this change of sign. But I wanted to say a couple of things about it now, just give you a little appetizer. And Neptune's entry into Aries, which takes place on the 30th of March, I mean, within hours of the solar eclipse, you could almost say that the solar eclipse announces Neptune's entry into Aries. And I mean, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Neptune's entry into this sign, one of the cardinal points in astrology, so it's kind of superpowered. So we're going to get some very important messages from Neptune's entry into Aries. What I will say, just to whet your appetite, is that the last time this happened was in 1861 to 1874. And this was during the time of the American Civil War. And Uranus was also in Gemini for part of that, just as it is going to be for us too in this period of time. So we can see that it has a lot to do with righting wrongs, getting the balance right. But if we go right the way back to 1206, which was when Neptune was also in Aries, 1206 to 1219, down by the side of me here. This is the time of the Crusades, the Christian Crusades. And I think that if there was just a little nutshell way of looking at Neptune in Aries, it really would be a crusade. So all of us have this sense of being on a personal crusade. And we get a bigger picture of this when we look at the various things that are happening in the world under Neptune's command, so to speak. They have a crusading feel to them. I think I've said on a couple of occasions about channeling your inner Joan, by which I mean your inner Joan of Arc. And it seems to me that this is what Neptune in Aries is inspiring in us all, but of course, particularly for us Arians. Now, on this video, I'm going to take it sign by sign. And especially if you're new to my channel, I really would like you to look at your sun sign, first of all. So if you're born when the sun was in Leo, you're a Leo, or a Virgo, always look at what I'm saying about that. But if you know your rising sign, and more particularly the degree of your rising sign, you'll know exactly where this solar eclipse is taking place, and you want to look at that as well from the perspective of your ascending sign. Now, when I put charts up so that you can see, roughly where these things are happening. And I'm always starting at 0 degrees of the sign. So that's just a way of having a picture of what's going on. So I know some of you get very tangled up on this, and I get a lot of comments where you're kind of wondering if you've got 18 degrees of something rising, yet you think, something is happening in your 12th house, not your first house. So if you know where a certain thing like the solar eclipse is taking place, go for that. It's sort of that simple. Anyway, let's start at the beginning, and let's start at the beginning of the zodiac. Aries kicks the zodiac off, and the solar eclipse is in Aries. So let's start with this fire sign. Now, if you look at the picture here, the horoscope, you can see that I put in there the sun, the moon together because this is a new moon, solar eclipse. And just above it, I've got Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and Saturn. We've got this real cluster effect here. So let me take the solar eclipse first of all. We're looking at a new moon. So this is a new beginning. And if it's your birthday on the 29th or even the 28th, but certainly the 29th, maybe even the 30th as well, then the year ahead is going to be a pioneering year, because Aries is the pioneer of the zodiac. New things, new territory, getting out of your comfort zone, travel. There could be all sorts of things that are going to mark this year as a year of adventure and treading new country, making new trails. This is the hallmark of your year ahead if it's your birthday around this time. If it is not your birthday around this time, we've still got a solar eclipse in your sign in the first house here. And so it means this period is pioneering. So the things that happen, the events that happen, especially those things that are out of your control, are all about opening new avenues up. So if something comes to an end at this point, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a friendship, whatever it may be, you know what? The reason why it's come to an end is because a new chapter must open. And this is the only way to get that new chapter open. So you need to be very philosophical about this. Of course, the whole idea of my doing all these forecasts is to give you a kind of edge on things and to get you to think about what you can do to manifest what you want to achieve, using the astrology as your guide. So if you want to begin something new, you want to break old patterns and start new ones, do it around the time of this solar eclipse, because my goodness, is there power here. Now, we can't avoid looking at Neptune here, Neptune entering Aries within hours of this solar eclipse. And we've also got Mercury and Venus hooking up to Neptune, and Saturn poised ultimately in May to also come into your sign. So there is a possibility right now, Aries, you're feeling very confused about things. You're not sure what you want. You're not sure whether what you're doing is right. You're not sure whether someone is going to come through. You might feel as though you haven't got the substance that you need to fulfill your requirements. Your resources are running low, or you have resources, but not the right ones that you need for a particular thing. Now, with Neptune at this point in Aries, we're also looking not just at doubting yourself, which of course you should never do, but we do doubt ourselves when Neptune arrives near our sun or a personal planet or our ascendant. We are absolutely embroiled really in confusion about who we are, what we're meant to be doing. It can be a real knot. And you need to be patient, Aries. You are the pioneer, you are the warrior, and you like to be active, and you like to be seen to be in charge. But you know, sometimes you can't be in charge. You have to let other people take control. Maybe you're not 100% well. Maybe there are things that you can't do anymore because of this reason or that. Well, you know, it's time for other people to show up. You don't have to be there for everybody and do everything. And if this is you at this point in time and you're feeling a little helpless, you're even feeling a bit of a victim, you know, it's a passage. It's a transition to something else. And sometimes finding dignity in reduced circumstances is what Neptune helps us do if we can look at it that way. Certainly for you, Aries, this March-April period is a mighty one. And you may have, I've talked about, putting you in charge so that you are aware of what's going on and can make the most of that. And new beginnings, new chapters. This is a good time to make all those new beginnings and new chapters. But if circumstances get in the way of those new beginnings, be patient. Because what will happen in the course of, well, maybe months we're looking at here, is that the right thing will come along. Have faith in yourself and have faith in the universe to get you on to the right path. So let's now look at Taurus. So Taurus, for you, this solar eclipse is taking place in the 12th house. Now that is the final sign of the zodiac. It is the area of secrets and shadows. It's the area of the unconscious mind. It's a very spiritual area as well, because it's an area in which we seek to go beyond. To escape is one way of looking at it, but to aspire to higher levels and higher existences and higher thoughts and higher everything. We're in the realms of the divine in the 12th house. But of course, because it's very difficult to bring the divine into reality, we can struggle in this area. And it can be a time of confusion. It can be a time where we feel weakened by our circumstances, not in charge of our destiny at all, not in charge of our ship of dreams, certainly. And it may be a time when we're not feeling 100% well. We're not our strong, robust selves. Now, this is going to vary from Taurian to Taurian. Some may just feel a kind of lethargy, can't get motivated, things aren't coming together in a way that allows you to get behind them. But for others, it can be really a physical thing, that this solar eclipse and around the time of the eclipse, you may be aware that you're not functioning well, whether you're mentally stressed or whether there's a physical problem or you've got dental problems. This solar eclipse is about attending to them. They're about highlighting weaknesses in the system in order to get strong. Now, all solar eclipses sort of bring about something you didn't know. And that's a huge field, isn't it? There can be all sorts of things you didn't know that this solar eclipse has got its signature on. But whatever it is, it may be difficult to get your head around initially. It's because it's foreign, it's different. You're just not sure how to handle it. But be patient with yourself. The fact that Neptune is conjunct Mercury, conjunct Venus, we've got this Neptunian factor in play, will make this a confusing period for many people, for many Taurians. It's almost as though the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And, you're getting mixed signals from people who you may work for, people you may be in a relationship with. And when we've got conflicts and mixed signals, it is difficult to, feel as though we're, confident, but it will come. And I think enlightenment is in here somewhere. Remember, this is the area of the unconscious mind. So you may find that there is all sorts of information coming to you in dreams. You may have some kind of revelation courtesy of this solar eclipse, a sudden awakening, a sudden feeling of, oh, I get it. Oh, I see, finally, your Damascus moment. It's certainly a time to reboot your inner self. It's a time to think about your spiritual self, to restore balance in your spiritual health, your physical health, and your mental health. But if something happens, either on the day of the eclipse or around this period through to, let's say, the full moon in Aries, which is going to happen 14 days hence, something happens and it really is very destabilizing. Wait until the dust has settled, Taurus, because you may find that your initial impression of what's going on isn't correct. And as the dust settles and you see more, you can see more options. You may even see that there are some tremendously positive factors within something but is entirely destabilizing. So if we come to Gemini, Gemini, this solar eclipse is taking place in your 11th house. And the 11th house is an area where we are not so concerned with ourselves and our own needs and our personal ambitions and all of that. It's about group things. It's about what's good for everybody. What do we like to do when we're with other people? What can teamwork do for us? What can team spirit do? It's also about humanitarian activities. It's about getting motivated to really do what you can for the planet or for the people or whatever else it may be. It's a very politically motivated area of the chart. But it's more about acting on principles. Let's put it that way. It's about, you may even find yourself thinking around this time of the solar eclipse, what is it all about? What am I here for? Am I here just to go through the motions and be on this earth for 70 years? Or do I play a part in the bigger story? And I think that's the key to this solar eclipse. What is your part in a bigger story? Now, that's going to cover a lot of different things for a lot of different Geminis. But I think if you can say that to yourself and think about this solar eclipse and why, it's important to you, it is about that. It isn't your story. It's your part in a bigger story. Now, there are some, kind of other things that can happen related to this solar eclipse. You may find that you've got an opportunity to start your own business or to join a startup company or to join some movement that is meant to, to benefit humanity. I mean, there's a whole string of things that are possible here. You may develop a new friendship, or a friendship may turn out to be more important than you think. And that friendship is going to be a huge structure in your life going forward. I'm not going to say you're necessarily going to go into business with a friend. That may not be of complete interest to you at all. But you might start a project with this friend or do something socially with this friend, and it marks a new beginning, and it's important. It isn't insignificant. The fact that Neptune is entering your 11th house may not be immediately obvious. Remember, it's going to be 13 years going through this area, but it is really about it's exactly what I just said about your part in a bigger story, but it is to do with the benefits that you can provide. Neptune is very much about healing and devotion and inspiration and suffering and being caring for those who suffer. So there may be something that will grow over these next 13 years, and maybe it will happen at the beginning of this time with the solar eclipse. There's going to be a hugely important part of your life. If you've never, ever thought about doing things for other people or joining a movement that's geared to doing that, there's a good chance that you will, not just on this solar eclipse, but as Neptune wends its way through this 11th house. If we come to Cancer now, Cancer, you are a cardinal sign, and this solar eclipse is in your fellow cardinal sign of Aries. So this area of your solar chart is about your being in the world, being out in the world. I always say about the 10th house, it's about who we want to become, what role in life we have, and which is why we get the idea of career in the 10th house, and things to do with how people view us, what we do, how we present, what we do in the world. And it doesn't have to be a career, but it often is. So when we look at the solar eclipse, we can say, guess what? There could be a new job, And it will come about in very strange circumstances. And the reason I'm saying that is that Neptune is entering this 10th house of yours the following day. Mercury and Venus are both hooked up to Neptune, so it's part of the picture of this solar eclipse. So something coming about in a strange way. It may be that a job fades, you lose a job, or you're up for a job and you thought you were going to get it and somehow you don't. But whatever is happening there is that it's allowing a new chapter to come in. And if at this point in time you are thinking, I'm not fulfilled in my job, I'm not happy, is this what I'm meant to be? Is this what I'm meant to do? This is a really appropriate point to say, you know what, I've got to do something that's going to be important for me to do. And I'm going to feel that I'm doing something that is worth doing. It may be quite simply your material needs are not being met. You're not being paid enough. You're not in a job that, will pay you more. And then it might be a question of retraining or doing something else in terms of how you can increase your income. It is tempting to think, yes, the solar eclipse is happening on the 29th, and then the 29th goes past and you think, well, none of that happened. I didn't get offered a great new job. I didn't lose my job. Nothing happened. But remember that the solar eclipse is a moment in time. It's an imprint of things to come. And certainly for the following 2 weeks until the full moon in Aries, this is alive and well. Everything I'm saying is at a premium. But it may take longer than that. But the symbolism or the signature of this eclipse will be on the event when it happens. Now, the fact that Neptune is entering this 10th house of yours is significant because it's going to be there for 13 years. And it's only when it's going to connect with your sun or your personal planets or an angle that you're going to really feel the effects of Neptune. On the one hand, Neptune is inspirational. It's like you get a dream job. Things are dreamy. Your dreams have come true. How fantastic. But it can be the total opposite. And it can be that dreams are shattered, that you lose a sense of where you were going in life. And you feel somehow unmoored. Everything is so fluid and loose and you can't get traction. But, it doesn't last forever. The Neptune transit, when it hits something, in your sign or in your chart, it's a period and it's a transitory period. You're moving from one state of being to another, one part of your life to another. It isn't achieved overnight. You're going to go this way and that way. There are going to be a lot of experiences, but like a raft, eventually the current will take you to a new shoreline. And I think if you think of it like that, you'll be patient with things that don't come about, that slip through your fingers or really don't happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to take more time. You're not there yet, but only when you are there will it be right for you. So that is something to bear in mind, not just with career matters, but with all those things in life that we aspire to. This area of your chart is about aspirations. Leo, this solar eclipse for you is happening in your 9th house, your 9th solar house. Now, this is an area where, I call it the area of far horizons because it covers a multitude of possibilities. It is about travel. It is about other countries and international things and all sorts of things that are far away from home. But it's also about far horizons in terms of your life. What do you want to be doing 10, 20 years down the road? Those kind of projections, where do I want to be? And sometimes it is quite literal, and you're thinking, do I want to live in Spain? Do I want to, be on a motorboat for the rest of my life? I mean, it has to do with place as well as it does with where you'll be in that place and what you will be doing. So we got a solar eclipse, and it could and does symbolize a journey. Again, is it a real journey and it involves travel? It's going to be significant, whatever it is. Either the journey itself is going to be hugely important, or the reason for the journey, what you meet at your destination, is going to, well, I'm not necessarily going to say it's life-changing, but it's certainly game-changing. This is also an area where we expand our mind. So it may have to do with gaining extra qualifications, doing a course, getting more skills. So you're going back to school. You're going to, be part of academia. You're going to join a faculty. And it also has something to do with legal matters. So it could be that you're just simply having to deal with a lot of legal stuff around the time of this solar eclipse. Or it could be that there's a legal situation, a case going on, and this solar eclipse is crucial to that result, that verdict, that ending. You've got to be very philosophical with a solar eclipse because, there's always something fateful about eclipses. And you can say, well, this was my destiny. This is, what's happening here. It's my destiny to be here, to go there, to do that, to have that happen. But you know what? Even if I don't like it, I have to accept that it's going to take me where I need to go. Just think of all these phrases I'm using that amount to travel and expanding your horizons. All of these phrases are applicable to this solar eclipse. Now, Neptune will be coming into this area the very next day, well, within hours of the solar eclipse. So there is a lot of a sense of, maybes and mights and yearnings and possibilities, and I could do that, or why don't I do this, or wouldn't it be wonderful if that happens? And that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. But if Neptune is going to make a connection with any of your personal planets or your angles, remember that often with Neptune, we're not seeing the reality. We're seeing things through a mist. So it can be quite difficult to manifest things. It's great to have a dream, but bringing that dream into reality is what it's all about. And that can be not exactly the simplest process. So that is something to think about with this solar eclipse. Everything that I mentioned about far horizons, journeys, that's what this solar eclipse is all about. Virgo. For you, this solar eclipse is in your 8th house, and the 8th house is one of the most mysterious areas of the horoscope. In fact, really, all the water houses are mysterious. That's the 12th, the 8th, and the 4th, because they're watery by nature, and water is always moving. So nothing is still, nothing is solid, although, hey, wait a minute. When does water become solid? When it's ice. And Scorpio, the sign of ice and fire, rules the 8th house. So we can see here that there is a sense that certain things that are happening at this time, around the time of the solar eclipse, are going to solidify into something that you had not considered would ever come into a shape of any form. So it may be a relationship. Maybe you hadn't thought that this person would ever be part of your life. But with a solar eclipse in this area, you may be surprised at how this relationship now becomes deeper, more bonded, more important, more intimate, all those words. It is an intimate area of the horoscope. It's where we give and receive, or receive from other people. And in order to receive, we have to be receptive. And that's sometimes difficult for all of us, especially for Virgo. I mean, you like to be in control of yourself. You like to be in control of situations. So the idea of yielding control and being open and receptive is a bit of a challenge. But then this solar eclipse is offering you that possibility. This is also an area to do with money, other people's money. So it's about inheritances and settlements, whether we're talking about coming out of a job and settling with a company, whether it is settling with an ex, you've come out of a relationship like marriage and you're having to settle up. So this solar eclipse could bode a really big settlement or some kind of big amount of money coming to you from someone else. We could even say the possibility of winning a large sum of money is possible with a solar eclipse here. Now, you know, eclipses are game changers. So any which way, you're not expecting it. But I think, to be fair, we need also to think about the deeper layers to this eclipse, especially as Neptune is in the mix there. Neptune coming into this area. You know what I'm going to say to you is this: be careful what you wish for. And I think this really underpins this particular solar eclipse. You get what you want, but is it really what you wanted? Do you know what I mean? You think you want this, you get it, but then it turns out not to be what you thought it was. And it's with this kind of knowledge that I'm giving you at this point that you want to think about the things that you are negotiating at this point, whether it's a financial negotiation, a business negotiation, a romantic negotiation, whatever it is. Really think about the results of what may happen by doing so. And really think about, is this what I want? Am I prepared for this? And that will answer a lot of questions. And I also think that, you know, this complex area of the horoscope is about taking off layers. Now, of course, you can take off layers quite literally and, you know, get undressed and lie in the sun. But I'm really talking about going deeply into things, removing the superficial layers, the veneers that are on situations and relationships. You've got to get really down to the heart of something. That takes courage, it takes honesty, and a certain amount of risk. And I think this solar eclipse is offering you that as well. So don't be surprised if what I'm saying, which you may not be able to take on board right now as I'm saying it, when it happens, you'll go, oh my goodness, that was that. Okay, Virgo. Libra, the sign of relationships. And guess what? This solar eclipse is in the house of relationships. My goodness, what a shakeup is going to happen here. Now, of course, it depends whether this solar eclipse is making an impact on your natal chart, whether it's on a personal planet or on an angle, as to whether the impact is recognizable and immediate, or whether it's sort of rather loosely implicit in what's going on in your life. But for some Librans, this is a sign of the one. You are meeting your Waterloo. And you know, I've got that song of ABBA in my mind, Waterloo, going on right now. When we meet our Waterloo, sometimes it's the thing that overwhelms us, doesn't it? But, you know, meeting someone who then becomes your significant other is a very powerful thing. And this is the sort of thing a solar eclipse in the 7th house can portend. But it's also a new phase for a relationship. Now, is that new phase because you're expecting a baby or a baby has been born. It's going to change your relationship completely. You've gone from being a couple to now having a third member. And all the learning curves that go with that are quite shocking sometimes. It's certainly an awakening. And, if an eclipse isn't a game changer, it's certainly an awakening. Now, we've also got Mercury and Venus in retrograde going over Neptune, and Neptune entering the 7th house. And Neptune in the 7th house is all about falling very deeply and profoundly in love, finding your soulmate, but it's also about the loss of love. Remember, it's a polarity. We're always dealing with polarities in astrology. And the opposite of union is disunion. The opposite of, coming together, if you like, is falling apart. So as much as we acquire, we lose with Neptune. So I'm afraid for some of you Librans, Neptune's presence in this area of the chart is going to cause the demise of a relationship. Now, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship or a marriage. It could be a business relationship or your relationship with a company. But I think certainly if you're a September Libra, you're more likely to kind of feel this any day now. You're going to perhaps feel that people are letting you down, or that the bonds that brought you together with another person are a little less strong than they once were. And maybe you're going to have doubts about the relationship, doubts about that person. Well, they are what they are. I mean, if you have doubts, you have doubts. But the chances are they're unrealistic and probably say more about you having doubts, not the other person causing them. It's you. And this can be a tricky time for getting your identity. I would say this is imposter syndrome time, but it can be a time when you're grappling with your identity and trying to figure out who you are, and certainly trying to figure out who you are in a relationship. Neptune's going to spend 13 years moving through this area. So there are going to be long periods when you don't notice anything like this at all. It's completely not happening, not apparent. But at some point, it will be apparent because Neptune will oppose your sun at some point. And that's when you get everything that I'm talking about. But this solar eclipse is an awakening to that. So while it may be an awakening to love and a sudden recognition of that person who you hadn't considered that you could fall in love with, actually you've fallen in love with them. Or it can be a sort of recognition that that things aren't what you hoped they would be, and you're feeling a little disillusioned. So they're warning shots across the bow. They come in that solar eclipse. So deal with what you see or what you feel about a relationship. Deal with it not necessarily on the day of the eclipse, but as you go forward in the near future, because a relationship often doesn't have to fall apart, but people all too often don't really talk about what's going on for a variety of reasons, and you're one of them. You're a people pleaser. But if you are feeling any sense of being unsupported or this wasn't what you wanted, now is the time to address that. And the things that happen around this time are showing you that. Okay, Libra? Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, this solar eclipse takes place in the sign of Aries, and there's a lot in common between Scorpio and Aries. Your old ruler before Pluto was discovered was Mars, and of course, Aries' ruler is Mars, and both of you are fighters. And you could say that this solar eclipse brings out your fighting spirit. And, I talked a little while ago about channeling your inner Joan. your inner Joan of Arc. And I really think this applies to you. And the eclipse itself is in the area of work and well-being, your life purpose, the way your life runs. So, what could a fighting spirit have to do with this? What would deploying your Joan of Arc, your inner Joan, do for this? Well, I think that sometimes you need to take aspects of your life to task in order to have a life that runs better. And things have to be stripped away. Good old Pluto, Scorpio business. So this solar eclipse may show you quite clearly that things can't continue in the way they've been going on. It may have to do with your life itself, the way your life runs. It may have to do with your health and well-being. It may have to do with work. And it may also have to do with the way that you feel that you want life to have meaning. And it appears to you that certain things that you are doing are meaningless. And are you going to spend the next 30 years doing meaningless things? So it's a call to arms, okay? It's about, I'm here for a reason. And that reason I need to pursue now. And of course, often we don't do what we need to do because, we've got a life that doesn't, go with what we want to do. So it has to be deconstructed and reconstructed. But it's also about our health and well-being. If we're not that healthy, then we don't have the energy that we need to marshal our skills, energies, and spirit in order to make changes that we need to change. And in fact, a solar eclipse, being what it is, a new moon, new chapters, and also has this fateful aura about it, may mean that this eclipse is signaling a fateful development, something you weren't expecting at all, and it throws your life not only into sharp disarray, but also sharp perspective. Can you have sharp disarray? No, you can't. I was going to say sharp perspective, and it ended up in disarray. So something that throws everything up in the air. And when those pieces come down, they'll be in a different form. And that's a really, really good way of looking at the events at this time. Maybe you didn't intend them to be ripped up and go up into the air. An event or another person did that for you. But of course, how they fall and what you make of them when they've fallen into this new shape is your solar eclipse, is the new chapter, is the new start. Neptune will be coming into this area, of course, within hours of that solar eclipse. So it is interesting to look at this and think, and I'm going back to health again, and it doesn't matter how old you are, all sorts of things. Neptune can undermine us and undermine our health. So whatever occurs around this time with the solar eclipse, this illumination, if you like, is going to be an important signal of what you need to do to get in better health. And whether it's something that happens, you get an injury, whether you get a virus, or whether you get a toothache, whatever it is a signal. If it's happening on this solar eclipse, it is a signal of something that needs attending to radically, and it will ultimately prove life-changing. Sagittarius. This solar eclipse is occurring in your fellow fire sign of Aries, and it is the 5th house of your solar chart. So it has a lot to do with creative matters, procreative matters too. So things to do with babies, pregnancy, your offspring. And of course, we can have offspring who are grown up. Whatever it is, there's something about your offspring, about your creative products that's affected by this solar eclipse. It could be a sign of a new baby. It could be a sign of some new project coming into your life. And certainly if you're wanting either of those things, well, this is the time to get really motivated and to put your efforts behind your desires. And speaking of desires, the fifth house is also an area of romance, an area of the heart. So this solar eclipse could signal a new love affair. Now, of course, that's great if you want to fall in love and you want to have an affair. A little bit more complicated if you're already in a relationship. But if we think about getting the magic back, finding what it was that brought us together in the first place, this solar eclipse could also be an opportunity or a bringer, returner of the spark that you once had. And I think, the times we're living in, they're so rich with possibilities, even in the turmoil. There's new growth because of things that end, things that can't be anymore. There's something new that we have to do, something new that will come out of the things that are destroyed or gone, whatever it may be. And this solar eclipse is all about that. It's about being born anew after things that have, not worked, been destroyed, all those kind of things. I don't want to make this necessarily very dramatic, but we all have these episodes in our lives when perhaps somebody we love leaves us, we lose our jobs, all sorts of other things have happened, and we're not very happy about it. But it's because that's gone, done, happened, that a new opportunity presents itself and we grow in a new direction. Neptune coming into this area, I think, is, it's going to be there for 13 years. So you're not going to have 13 years of Neptunian events in the fifth house. It's only going to be when they make contact with something in your natal chart. But I think it is a lot to do with bringing visions into reality. So the spark of an idea becomes something that you can build into a real thing. But the first thing is the vision that you have. So believe in your visions, but work at your visions to bring them into reality. And if a dream is shattered, it means it wasn't the right dream. That dream wasn't right for you, and it would have taken you in the wrong direction. So all the things that Neptune delivers in terms of dreams, but also sacrifice and letdowns, these are going to be particularly appropriate to things of a creative nature, of which I've already talked about, love affairs. So I think, the field is vast here, Sagittarius. There are going to be some of you who are going to be starting powerful new love affairs, not necessarily on the 29th of March, but the signal for it is there. There are going to be others of you who will be starting a new business or beginning a new creative project, or thinking about starting or adding to the family, or having some new development linked to an offspring. And that solar eclipse is the signature on all of those things. Capricorn, for you, this solar eclipse is coming at a very, very important time, and also in a very important place in your horoscope. It's at the very base of your chart. And these are the roots of life, the roots of everything. It's where you've come from and ultimately where you're going to. So it has a lot of things to do with family, your parents, your ancestors. It has to do with the home that you live in, and the way that a lot of things in your life are based on. If we have a strong base, then we can grow and good things can happen to us in the rest of our lives. If it's not strong, and that underpinning of our lives, whether it's feeling supported by our family, by feeling we're in a safe space, all these things are crucial to the success of our lives. And I think with Neptune coming to this point, it is a time when you are more likely to feel insecure and unsupported rather than feeling that everything is great and you have the strength and the backup to be who you want to be and do what you want to do. I'm not saying there won't be some Capricorns who do feel that, but I think in large part, this is a time when we feel the underpinning of our lives a little bit squelchy. It's things, the roots aren't in a secure soil. Now that will change and they won't, it's not going to be like that forever. But during the period where Neptune is connecting with your sun or your personal planets, the angles, you will feel as though the rug underneath your feet has been pulled out a bit. Now, for some Capricorns, this solar eclipse is all about a new home. And you may already know about that. You are planning a move and it's any day now. So, you know, that's what the solar eclipse is like and it is about. And I promise you, what's going to happen because you move to this new place, that something very important is going to happen because you've moved. Now, for other people, it's a sign that something needs to change at root level. Now, it may be the family itself. Maybe there are family wars or family upsets, or you're worried about a parent or a relative, and this is gnawing away at a feeling of being happy in your home life, happy with your family. These things are very difficult, but a solar eclipse is a new chapter and it can bring new energy to things. So if you haven't yet found a solution to a family problem, then you might find that this solar eclipse does it. And sometimes it's an event in a whole other area of life that suddenly gets everything to go in the right direction. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a home move or someone in the family saying something or an event happening to one of the family. It can be in a whole other area of life. But what it does is, sort this problem out. I think too, having a spiritual code, something that really supports you, has never been more important, Capricorn. And although you're one of the zodiac's realists, I think there is in you this yearning for the spiritual life. And I think for some Capricorns, this is going to really, really be super important from this point on. Aquarius, the solar eclipse is taking place in the third house of your solar chart. This is all about journeys. It's about communication. It's about outlook. It's about mindset. How important are all of these things? Our outlook really dictates how things turn out. If we've got a positive outlook, 1,000 to 1, things turn out well. And even if they haven't, somehow we're going to make the best of them. And we can look at that in terms of a real outlook. When you look through your window, what are you seeing? Your neighborhood. Is that changing? Are you going to move to a new neighborhood? Well, that's possible. But it's also about information coming to you that changes your opinions. It may even change your kind of destined route in life. It's that important. It's like a revelation, something that you discover, something that you hear about, some information that you come across. Wow, that makes everything different. And from this point forward, you're going forward in a new direction. Now, it can be a very mundane, simple thing. Maybe there's something new going on in your neighborhood. There's a new building going up. There's some protest happening in the community. There's something else going on. And this is sort of affecting life where you live. It's possible. But those things are over and done with, usually in a fairly short space of time. So they're not what we might call life-changing events. Of course, if you have a big factory spring up in your back garden, that could be said to be a life-changing event because your outlook is now changed by the factory. But in large part, we're looking at small things. I think here too, with Neptune arriving in this area, you're more likely to be drawn to things of a mystical nature. Is it time to really study something that will advance your spiritual knowledge? Is it time to do something of a spiritual nature that is going to help humanity? It might do. I mean, it can be as aspirational as that. But the downside to Neptune in this area is mind fog. And so we become a little woolly-minded. We're not so, things don't have such sharp edges. Our memory isn't as good as it was. I'm not going to say we lose the plot, but there is a sense of that happening. And, sometimes when we go through a very stressful period, we can have those kind of events that we, lose our bearings, we forget something, when we can feel very destabilized. But the reason for that is what we need to be looking at. The reason we're anxious, the reason that we're going through this stressful time, that's the root cause of any kind of sense of, not being able to function mentally as well as we used to. It's a temporary thing. It's based on circumstances. It's not, terminal or anything like that. But at the same time, I think if we look more deeply into this, it's almost like you're hearing and seeing things that you never did before. And that the veil between the unseen and the seen is thinning. So you may be surprised. Maybe you start to see spirits or you hear voices. And, of course, when we talk about that, we think somebody's a lunatic. But as you know, there are some very, very wonderful channelers and mediums who definitely hear voices, but they're not mad. So this thinning of the veil between one reality and another could have these extraordinary effects, and you may find yourself becoming more psychic and more attuned to things. But always, even when that happens, because sometimes it can happen suddenly and it's very disturbing, you need to always be earthed as well. So get advice, always try to anchor yourself to the reality while dealing with things that are beyond understanding or beyond the physical. That's important. So I think those are the main things. Oh, last but not least, this solar eclipse in itself may be the messenger. And I really want to leave you with that idea, because it's such a good image, isn't it? That the solar eclipse is a messenger. It's giving you information, sending you a message, which could prove life-changing. Okay, and finally, Pisces. Pisces, for you, this solar eclipse is taking place in your second house. And the second house is all about what you have, what you own. It's about income and earnings and money and possessions and property, but it's also about values. What are your values in life? Because it's our values in life that make us who we are. It's also about self-esteem. When we feel rich in ourselves, then we feel confident and things don't faze us. But we don't always feel confident, and people don't always treat us in a way we would like to be treated. We don't feel full of value because of the way we're being treated. And if people aren't paying us a salary that befits or is conducive to our well-being or who we are as a person, that can really erode our confidence and sense of positivity. And all these things are connected. you know, whether money is undermining you, whether other people's treatment of you is undermining you, they're all sort of linked. It is about self-esteem. And we think about that law of prosperity, which is so important. But often when we feel we're not earning enough, or we've got too many outgoings and not enough incomings, when we feel that we're not being rewarded for what we do, we kind of close up. We go into defense mode. We defend ourselves, when in fact the opposite is the case. We should puff ourselves up and flow out. The important thing about money is that we keep it flowing. We keep our spirit flowing. We keep our creativity flowing. We don't jam up and protect. We actually open up and, you know, trade. I'm just thinking now of Trump and the idea of tariffs and trade wars. Actually, trade is what is healthy for a nation. And by trading, all sorts of good things happen. And so you may be feeling right now that the trade-off isn't good enough, but it can be turned around. And it starts the turnaround, first of all, by rebooting the value you place in yourself. It's about really recognizing who you are and what you offer as a person. And when we know that, it may be only one thing we offer as a person, one thing: we are kind. Really feeling that sense of how kind we are and living in it, feeling it at our core, is the beginnings of being treated as we deserve. It's a very simple thing, but of course there are much more expressions: having confidence in what we do, our skills, knowing we are of value. And that inner knowing means people respect us and pay us more. So it starts small, but it can end big. Neptune coming into this area, your ruling planet, now moving into the second house, is going to change your value system. I think, you know, Pisces is rarely over concerned with the material world. You're not that kind of sign. But when Neptune comes into the second house, you're even less concerned with material rewards. You want something much more inspirational, much more along the lines of, you know, doing good, of getting, you know, feeling that your life is rewarding you on a spiritual level, you know, whatever it's doing in terms of finance. And I have to say that finances will fluctuate. And to be real, there could be some loss of income here. But you know what? This solar eclipse is a new moon eclipse, and it's saying, you know, if something ends, there is a new beginning, a new chapter, and there is a new way of earning money, a new way of finding money. It may even indicate some kind of windfall. It's that random. So Pisces, I hope I've given you a good idea of what to expect from this solar eclipse, and everybody who may have just picked around at their sign and is now coming to the end here, where I do a tiny little conclusion. It's interesting, isn't it, looking at something from 12 different perspectives. And that's what's wonderful about astrology, is it does give different perspectives. And all through the year, the sun is moving through different parts of our horoscope, the same as Mercury, Venus, and Mars, all the personal planets. So all the time, we're getting each of those houses brought into our personal experience. And one of the ways of making this alive and understandable is this very thing that I'm doing, looking at new moons, full moons, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses. It shows different aspects of your life and how the different configurations bring out certain themes. So thank you for being here. And if you haven't yet looked at the other video about things in a much more sort of technical, but also, you know, wider sense, well, take a look. Bye for now. See you next time.